Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host. Joining me now is Joe Biggs, and we've got a lot of news to talk about. We're going to talk about actor Tim Robbins blaming Sanders' losses on voter fraud. And that's not as improbable as you may think, because we've got some very interesting information coming out of Arizona right now about fraud at multiple levels within the votes. And this is not even on the rigged GOP side. We're also going to be talking about another incredible example of civil asset forfeiture. Police taking $53,000 from a Christian band and an orphanage and a church, okay, charging the money with the crime. Because, you know, it is a crime if you have cash. Let's be honest about that in modern America, and let's be honest about the fact that the federal government has turned our law enforcement agencies, many of them bribing them to participate in this theft, they've turned them into literal highway robbers. You know, it was Lysander Spooner who said the difference between the government and a highway robber is that a highway robber just steals your money and leaves you alone, but the government takes your money and follows you down the road, nagging you as you go along. Well, that literally has become the case now with our government. But I want to talk about the story that was on the Drudge Report with Joe Biggs now. This is a Judicial Watch story, and this harkens back to something you did, what was it, about a year ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was April 15th and 16th, 17th, 18th of last year.
Yeah,
so it's been about a year, just a little over a year ago, yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
So yeah, it's red linked on Drudge, and it's cartels help terrorists in Mexico get to U.S. to explore targets. ISIS militant Mohammed Omar Kabir among them. It says Mexican drug traffickers help Islamic terrorists stationed in Mexico cross into the U.S. to explore targets for future attacks, according to information forwarded to Judicial Watch by a high-ranking Homeland Security official in the border state. Now, myself, Josh Owens, went down there a year ago and actually investigated the initial reports by Judicial Watch, saying that there was some information from some high-level people that there was some ISIS activity in Anapra. Now, if you actually look at a map, you have El Paso, and then south of that is Chihuahua, Juarez, and then 8 miles west of that over is Anapra. And that's actually an area that I ended up going into. I found a local in that area. He drove me across. I went over there by myself with this guy's help to drive me around. And we found some interesting things, you know, and on the way back, the FBI stopped us at the airport and questioned me. And Josh Owens was able to sit there with me and kind of listen in on the whole thing. And they said that they believe that that's a viable threat, that they think that's something that's real, and they believe what Judicial Watch is reporting, and that the sources that they're getting this stuff from is something that they are interested in, they're looking into.
And now we have more corroboration of that. We've had an Italian newspaper article, they report on this in this article, as well as the Foreign Affairs Secretary, Mexico's top diplomat, Claudia Ruiz, says that she doesn't understand why the Obama administration U.S. media are culpably neglecting this phenomenon. That's very interesting when the Mexicans are saying, hey, you know, this is an issue. Why aren't you concerned about this?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I told you I just saw Cartel Land, just saw it on DVD. I missed it when it first came out. An amazing documentary. And I tell you, when you look at this, the difference between the cartels themselves and the Islamic terrorists is a distinction without a difference, quite frankly. It doesn't surprise me at all to see them cooperating with each other.
Well, everyone seems to find that hard to believe that the cartels and ISIS could, you know, so to say, get in bed together with one another. They both believe in money, and they both believe in blood to get that money.
Yeah, and decapitations, yeah.
Yes, and actually in some of this articles, it says that a lot of beheadings have been on the rise in these border areas due to what they believe would be some Islamic extremism due to ISIS moving into these areas and coming over. You know, I've shown people time and time again in Texas and Arizona how easy it is to walk into Mexico and come back over to the U.S. without even being seen. So it's not going to be that hard for these people to do it. And you've got this guy, he comes out in this Italian newspaper. He says, the border that separates Mexico from the U.S. is so full of free zones that I could come in with a group of men in a few hours and kill thousands of people in Texas and Arizona. And that has been my biggest concern, because I have family in both of those states.
Yeah.
Especially along the border area and friends. I don't want to see something like this happen. And here it is, we're over a year later from these initial reports, and now we actually have this guy coming out bragging about how easy it is. This is a guy who was chased out of Kuwait for his extremism ties over a decade ago. So this guy is training people by the hundreds, by the thousands now to carry out attacks. And they're saying, he's bragging about it, that they're willing to do it. And what have we done in the last year? We've done nothing. Our border hasn't gotten any stronger. We have no more Border Patrol agents being out there. Half these guys don't even do their job that are out there anyways. They have no motivation to do their jobs.
Well, they're told they can't do it. I mean, we've interviewed the vice president of the Border Patrol Union. They've come out very strongly in favor of Donald Trump because they're very frustrated. They've been told they have to stand down. They're prevented from doing their job. They want to do their job. They see what the problem is, and yet they set up these absurd permanent checkpoints 100 miles
25 miles inward, yeah.
Yeah, and when I've been out to West Texas, it's absolutely amazing. Stay with us. We'll be right back. We've got a lot of news to cover, and we'll be talking to Joe Biggs about the exposure to Mexican cartels as well as ISIS militants. Well, Joe, you know, we're looking at this article that Judicial Watch put out. They're talking about how the Mexican Army federal law enforcement officials discovered documents in Arabic and Urdu, as well as plans of Fort Bliss, okay? They said that they also found Muslim prayer rugs that were there, recovered during the documents during the operation. We've also had, as InfoWars reporters have gone down there, we've seen the multilingual signs that they even post up. You know, have signs in all these different languages. The border is wide open. And this is very clear evidence. Even the Mexican officials are warning us about this, saying we can't believe this is being ignored by the American government.
I mean, they've even found these prayer rugs and documents and things like that 125 miles inland from the border in Falfurrias when John Bound and Jakari Jackson and, you know, Kit Daniels, all these guys went down there, Don Salazar, and looked and interviewed these people. It's happening. And it's not just at the border, it's moving in.
Yes.
And there's so many of these guys who are already in these cells, these sleeper cells, waiting, that I just don't understand why our government is allowing this to happen so much. And the fact that...
And that's the key. They're allowing it to happen. It isn't that they don't know. Everybody is sounding the alarm. You've got Judicial Watch. We've talked about it. The Mexican government is talking about it. As Judicial Watch is saying, they found evidence that the State Department has known about this for decades.
I mean, yeah. I mean, in Laredo, Texas, Josh Owens and I caught smugglers coming across. You know, those were drugs, but that could easily be some kind of chemical or something like that that could be used in explosives. You know, it's a stretch for that, but it definitely is something that can happen.
Well, we invaded Iraq supposedly because there's weapons of mass destruction, and yet they won't clear our border for weapons of mass destruction. Somehow, you at the airport with a fingernail clipper is a greater concern to them than ISIS bringing over whatever they can carry into the border. And, of course, they can carry it with an armored truck if they want.
Yeah, the police stopped us on the border numerous times investigating, looking at the wide open border. They're more concerned about reporters going out there than they are these ISIS jihadis who could be possibly coming over, or cartel guys, or gang members and stuff like that. You know, the mainstream media always wants to portray it as there's these young women and children who are coming across the border. Yeah, there are some, but they're not all. Their definition of children goes up pretty high to adult status here in the real world.
Yeah,
you know. So I mean, it's kind of BS when you see this and you actually go down there and you can put your eyes on that and see it, and then you read these articles that some of these people put out, like Fox News and CNN, and you're just like, oh my God, like how do you sleep at night?
Yeah, I'd like to see Glenn Beck and David Barton go down and hand some teddy bears to these ISIS guys. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Where are they going to take that? Yeah, you know, as I was talking about Cartel Land, it truly was amazing. And watching that movie, and if you haven't seen that movie, you really need to watch that to get a feel for what's happening, both on the American side and on the Mexican side. This guy who put this film together, and we've interviewed him here at InfoWars, it truly was amazing how he embedded himself with them, got their confidence, but to also show the fact that you've got people both in America and in Mexico that are concerned because their governments don't do anything. In many cases, their governments partner with these people. I thought it was absolutely amazing, the parallels between what was happening in the Mexican town and a movie like The Magnificent Seven, for example, okay, which itself is a common problem. I mean, that was based on a Japanese story by Kurosawa, okay, the Seven Samurai. So this is a universal experience that when the government disarms you, what did the government do when they started to get a citizen movement together to protect their towns in a way that the government refused to do? The government came in and decided they would disarm the people. And so as they were stacking their arms up, they started ringing the church bell. And they got on the PA system and said, come and help us. They're taking away our means to protect ourselves. And the citizens came out there unarmed and shooed the government out of the way that was there confiscating the firearms. An amazing story.
Yeah.
Truly an amazing story. Amazing film.
Well, also one of the things they're saying, too, is that this Mexican ISIS cell has managed to import small arms, ammunition, and even devices for air targets directly from the former Iraqi arsenal of Saddam Hussein. And they said that the only one to express any concern was a Republican governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, who informed the White House candidate Donald Trump. And during a public speech, Abbott announced that ISIS terrorists would have repeatedly crossed the border on an exploratory mission. And he says he thinks it's very possible that they could be ramping up this Islamic State to start carrying out attacks. And like you said, we keep hearing this all the time, that they want to crack down on gun control. This is our means of protecting ourselves if these psychopaths come over and do something. Texas and Arizona, we thrive on the Second Amendment.
That's right.
You know, we need to be able to have this.
That's right. But they're going to be bringing in perhaps some pretty heavy weapons, as you just mentioned.
Yes.
You just put there. So, yeah, they can get off the first shots, and they can kill a lot of people off with the first volley. And so, yeah, the Second Amendment is going to provide us with some protection. And we have a better situation here in America than they do in Mexico, where they go around when the people try to protect themselves and just take their weapons from them and throw them in jail, which is what happened there. But it is something we should all be very, very concerned about.